through the lens of A Course in Miracles, becomes a surprisingly sharp comedy about the ego's frantic problem-making and the hidden spiritual sincerity underneath the cry for help itself. The title says almost everything. Help, ACM would say that every human behavior is either an expression of love or a call for love help. Not punishment-worthy, not spiritually shameful, a call. And the movie turns that into absurdist chaos. Ringo Starr accidentally ends up wearing the sacrificial ring that a cult cannot remove, and suddenly everyone is chasing him. Cultists, scientists, police, fanatics. His ordinary life becomes an elaborate pursuit nightmare. That mirrors the ego condition remarkably well. The separated mind puts on an identity, a ring, and then spends its life hunted by fear, obligation, guilt, danger, and attempts to escape consequences generated by identification itself. The ring symbolizes attachment to the self-concept. Once the mind says, "This is me," the chase begins. ACM describes the ego as a system built on fear of annihilation. The ego believes it must constantly protect the identity it made. So life becomes management. Protect the image, avoid punishment, seek approval, outrun fear, maintain control. And the movie exaggerates this into comedy. That matters. Comedy can expose the insanity of ego more gently than solemn philosophy sometimes can. The characters rush frantically from one bizarre solution to another, yet nothing resolves the core issue. That's deeply ACM. The ego solves problems at the level of form while preserving the underlying thought system that generated the problem. Even the scientists in the film represent this. They want the ring for experimentation and power. The intellect believes if it can just analyze enough, manipulate enough, control enough, peace will arrive. But ACM says the problem is not external circumstance. It is identification with fear itself. There's also something important in the film's playful unreality. The world constantly shifts tones. Spy thriller, musical, surreal comedy, nonsense adventure. It feels dreamlike. ACM repeatedly calls the world a dream because its meanings are unstable and projected. Help intuitively understands that reality, as experienced by the ego, is bizarrely constructed and psychologically exaggerated. One fearful thought turns into a whole universe of pursuit. And beneath the silliness is another ACM insight. The ego secretly enjoys complexity. The entire movie becomes absurdly overcomplicated because one tiny mistaken attachment remains unquestioned. That's the ego. Simple peace feels almost suspicious to the conditioned mind. Drama feels meaningful. The songs in the film matter too, especially the song Help. Help is far more vulnerable than its upbeat energy initially suggests. When I was younger, so much younger than today, the persona that once felt self-sufficient begins cracking. That's spiritually significant. ACIM often begins not with enlightenment, but with exhaustion. I do not understand anything. I need another way. My strategies are failing. Real willingness often enters when self-reliance collapses. And unlike the ego's version of independence, ACIM points toward joining, guidance, and humility. Not helpless victimhood, but release of the isolated controller identity. There's also a subtle contrast between spontaneity and control throughout the movie. The Beatles move through chaos with humor, adaptability, and improvisation, while the antagonists are rigid, obsessive, and mechanical. Fear hardens, joy moves. That's a recurring ACM pattern. The ego wants guarantees. Spirit responds freshly. Even the cult in the movie reflects something psychologically true. People often organize around fear while calling it sacred. ACM would caution against confusing dual seriousness, sacrifice, or intensity with actual awakening. Fear dressed in spiritual clothing is still fear. And maybe the deepest ACM thread is this. The cry for help is not weakness. It is the beginning of honesty. The ego says, handle everything alone. Spirit says you do not have to navigate the dream isolated from love. So beneath the color, nonsense, music, and chase scenes, help becomes a playful reminder that the mind's frantic attempts to solve itself often create the very labyrinth it fears. And sometimes healing begins not with mastery, but with finally admitting help.